Jade. I've been an English teacher for the last almost 2 years now. I've helped people online improve their English if they're non-native speakers. I've also worked almost 4 years teaching the ACT, so like English and reading for the ACT as well. And recently this year, I've really gotten into the gaming industry and have been creating courses designed for people in video game marketing.
Interesting. So let me take a step back. How did you get into teaching, and then how did you sort of bridge all these gaps? What was sort of your path in order to get to this sort of gaming style?
When I was little, I was always a really good speller, and yet it took a lot to write stuff. Like writing can be a hassle. And my mom got me this book of like write a sentence a day. And that stirred my creativity and made me think, oh, I don't have to do a lot. I just have to do a little and I can make stuff happen. And that's kind of been a mindset that's been a part of who I am now. So I like to do little things. You do a post a day, or you write this, or you do a lesson a day, you read a page a day, whatever small thing you do, it means something. And that wasn't my mindset at the time. Well, fortunately, I ended up loving writing, and I created stories, and I did all that, and I even got a bachelor's degree in English. The problem with a bachelor's degree in English is people are like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
So I was originally going to go for a teaching certification, but it was very difficult, and I wasn't really set necessarily on being a teacher in a school. So I struggled for a long time. I took little gigs here and there. I worked for companies where I worked for a company where I got to write little posts for their website, little blog posts. I graded little essays online and stuff for essay responses. But mostly it's been very hard to get to this world. What gave me that opportunity was a job being able to teach the ACT, like I mentioned earlier. And while I couldn't do that full time, I realized I had to find something that was going to allow me to fill up my schedule with teaching English, because I really did like it. And I was fortunate enough that as long as I got my TEFL, which is a teaching English as a foreign language certification, I could teach online. And doing that, I've gradually, over the last couple of years, worked at multiple jobs and made more money over time per hour at different companies. So it's a journey to get to, okay, so I'm teaching English, and it came from learning, oh, I actually like writing, to I can write in so many different ways and create a brand and create marketing and show, hey, I can teach this, and I can do it in a way that feels special to me and my students, and they really appreciate it.
Teaching English to people, how is that process? Is it easier now with the technology and things like that? Because I'm sure it's sort of different now as far as when you probably first started.
I'm one of those people that, even though it was an incredibly difficult time, I am actually very grateful for the pandemic and for the lockdown, not for what it did for people and for the hurt, but for the opportunities that opened up online. I only got my job. I got my job at the center where I taught the ACT, because that center had just opened up once the lockdown was lifted. So I got my opportunity there. Then tons of online companies, everything was going online. So there were things opening up for people that could not go out, did not want to go out, did not feel safe to go out, that were having to figure out, okay, how do I do this online? And so over the last 5 years, we've seen a variety of websites and different types of companies find a way to get to their audience online. And so I found that what I'm able to do now, I don't think I would have been able to do before the lockdown, before the pandemic, because of the opportunities that arose, after it. And so I'm able to connect on different platforms. I'm able to have access to different teaching opportunities, I think, and material and just stuff that just didn't exist, I don't think, before. And
Yeah.
that's what gives me this opportunity. I mean, it's everything has become so much more accessible
Right.
to people. I teach adults.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I've tried teaching kids. It's not my thing. I love teaching adults. They really appreciate what I do, and it's really rewarding. I teach them English, so I've gotten a lot of students. I've gotten students from Poland. I've gotten students from Ukraine, from Israel, from Spain, from Italy, from Taiwan, and I've adjusted to their level and tried to find something that would be appropriate for them, whether I'm providing the materials or I create them on my. I know a little Spanish, so I have a little partiality to Spanish-speaking students because I know to a little bit. I mean, I'm not nowhere near fluent. I don't have any of that, but I'm able to say some phrases. I can connect a little bit there, and they really appreciate that. So yeah, I really enjoy it. Like I said, I create my own materials. I create games, and gamification is yes.
Before we even sort of dive into that aspect, where was your passions as far as gaming and your upbringing into games? Like, what got you interested into gaming in the first place?
So for me, I like to look a little bit at it as the video games and then like educational games, because they both kind of played a part in how I got to where I am now. So when I was little and still today, I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I mean, that's not gonna that Pokemon train does not stop. I love it. I have the stuffed dolls in my room. I'm hugely inspired by Pokemon, and I think over time I've realized how much, to the extent that it's inspired my mindset and how I think about things. So, and even in general, just monster catching games, it's my subgenre. That's what I know. So, but as far as the educational side of it, I loved computer games growing up. I was homeschooled after third grade because I was born with a birthmark on my face called a hemangioma. It was like a large benign tumor on my face. I've had 11 surgeries to remove it and reconstruct my face. But school was tough when you look different, and I didn't make any friends because it was very difficult for me, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. We decided to homeschool, and so my mom had to find curriculum that would fit me, and we did that. We also found computer games that were educational, and so we found something that worked for me because I'm kind of stubborn, and so it had to be something that I enjoyed. And still is. Like, if I don't enjoy it, I'm not doing it. And we did. And one of the series was called. Now that there's kind of like a difference, and I want to differentiate here between like a game, an educational game that I enjoyed versus one I didn't. Now there was a series called Jumpstart, and they had. You remember that? Okay, cool. And I loved it. I loved the little educational things that they would do. I thought it was really fun, and that kind of showed me, okay, that you can learn through gaming, and it was really fun. Now I also loved learning Spanish. It was something I adored. So I ended up investing in Rosetta Stone. I wasn't crazy about it. It didn't really I felt it was very repetitive, the tasks. So I think what I've come to realize is that if I want to engage my students and create educational content that awakens what awoke in me when I play Jumpstart, when I play Pokemon, then I need to apply those things. And those things really are primarily variety, which is something I've learned so much from Pokemon. They have over 1,000 creatures now. There's tons of places to explore and things to do. Adaptability. Being able to adapt to different ages and different styles and different trends, evolving, growing, something that constantly is changing and getting better with time. Pokemon has a big community, all of these things that were always there that I've come to realize, hey, that's what I can take from these things and apply to how I create courses, how I engage with my students, and how I make great material that resonates with them.
What is the curriculum like? How are you bridging that gap? Like you said, trying to bring that excitement that you had when you were a kid. How are you molding that? Because I'm sure it's hard enough for them to, try to learn another language and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
and you're also trying to bring a level of fun and a level of, interactivity and all that stuff.
I kind of use a variety of different resources. I don't have like a set thing. I pretty much find that I adapt it or tailor it to the student and their level. So I'll use a variety. I'll use different textbooks because sometimes the textbooks, they're really great and they're very helpful and colorful, and I find that they work very well. Along with there's a website called Genially where you can create games there, like a spinning wheel and matching and all kinds of different games on there. I've made games on there. And then PowerPoint, sometimes I'll use PowerPoint. So I try to cull from a variety of different things to what the student needs. And then separately, I've made my own courses that have quizzes, that have, different types of exercises and interactions that can give it more enjoyment than just a simple video course. I think video courses can be great. I may do that more in the future, but I find that I'm the kind of person that I'm more likely to read the script underneath, like the script of what is said, and read that faster than just sitting there and watching the person, or the transcript. That's what I was trying to think, the transcript, rather than just sitting there and watching a 10, 15-minute video about something. Yeah. So making it more active and making the videos important, obviously, when they are applied. I've used some great resources from YouTube under the Creative Commons license. Using those sources and then I've created like little workbooks that my students can, put their ideas in and keep, which I find really cool to do. And then quizzes and review checks and stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that to me makes it more active and makes it more meaningful at the end of the day, rather than watching videos and trying to remember what you did and just like talking to yourself about what you would do.
So that's currently like, what is, I guess, the next step, or like, what is like, I guess, the next sort of iteration of what you're doing? What is it that you would like to see happen as far as in the field that you're working with? Like, is there some things that could make it easier? How difficult is it as it's currently constructed? What is your overall view of topic that you're within?
That's a great question. I feel like gamification has become a hot topic, and rather than it be something that I feel is trendy, I think it needs to be something that's better integrated into teaching. So a lot of times when people think about gamification, they think about getting points on a competitive like competition, like some kind of board, competition board, getting rewards, you get a little prize, you get a little surprise. Yeah, and that's not really all that it contains. Gamification is more of what makes it engaging and playable, but something that also makes that education more something that you can retain. And we haven't really gotten to the point where we make education like we make, any sort of thing that's enjoyable. It still has requirements, it still has guidelines, and it can still have competition. But at its core, it needs to resonate with the person so that they remember it and they can utilize it. And so there needs to be just more ability to do that, and to, rather than looking at the aesthetics, looking at the function of how these elements incorporate and contribute to like a wholesome experience.
How have you seen more people sort of gravitated towards wanting to learn English, but secondly, also learning from a gaming perspective? Like, do you see that as like, especially, you say you're kind of experimenting with different things, you're kind of doing different things. Like, what would make your job easier? What is something that I guess you kind of struggle with now that, could possibly either futurize it or, sort of put some sort of spin on it to where it is starting to make that change that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's another good question. So I feel like one of the things is that we tend to think of playing games as for kids, and we forget that as we grow older, I mean, if we look at whether it be Instagram or TikTok, we got a lot of adults still acting like kids.
Yeah.
Good and bad. Good
Yep.
and bad. And I think we need to remember that it's important to stoke the child and the adult. And that's something that's really important to me. That's what I try to apply to when I'm teaching is I want to bring that child out. So I'm the kind of person that if you saw me teach, you may think, oh man, I'd be great for kids. But the fact is that I recognize that adults need the adult version of what the kids have.
Yeah.
And that is still encouragement and excitement and appreciation and really connecting with them on that level and appreciating what they do so that they don't feel like they're I'm an adult, I'm a teacher. Like for me, we're on the same level. So I want you to feel comfortable with me to make mistakes. And I want you to have fun while you're with me. And so that's what's most important to me. And if I can bring that child out and they feel comfortable with me, then I feel like and they can remember what we learned, because that's ultimately, I am a teacher. That's still important. Then I feel like I did what I needed to do, and I helped them out. So
yeah, I was just kind of thinking of like certain stuff, like maybe like making flashcards and making them look like Pokemon cards or something.
Yeah,
Different things
great.
like that.
Exactly. I like the whole. I love the collection element, and that's another great thing that I think can apply to gaming, not the game, to education in general. Is some sort of collective element that relates to what they've learned that they get to keep, and don't always know how to incorporate that. Obviously, you can do it with vocabulary words and certain things, but I do think there could be a great collective element that would make it fun.
As far as the growth, has there been more people sort of seeking this sort of way as far as learning? From what I understand, like English is one of the hardest languages to learn, and culturally and all that different stuff. What are the people saying? Are they able to take these skills and get jobs? Are they able, I guess, obviously be able to function, just be able to walk down the street and see, hey, that means this, and hey, that means that? What is the output as far as the program and what they're learning?
Yeah, I haven't been able to gauge that as much because I've only been doing it a short time, and I've worked for a lot of companies, so they more keep track of it than I have. I've only kind of started like doing more individualized stuff like on my own this year.
Right.
And that's still something I would need to figure out. I don't really have the data on how effective gamification is, but for me, as somebody that really only wanted to do things that she enjoyed, I feel like I would be more likely to, at the very least, engage. And that's half the battle. Is if you're going to start it, you got to be able to get in there somehow. And gamification can be that way. And what we have to be sure of is that it's also, like you said, produces that outcome that is going to benefit them in their lives. But I don't really know the data about that. The students feel good, and so I'm like, okay, they feel good. That's great. But it is very hard to assess that.
As gamification continues, people wanting to learn English and things like that, where do you see that sitting currently, and sort of where that's, I guess, headed or not headed?
Yeah, I think that it's coming. There's going to be a form of it that's going to happen in some capacity. It may not be the iteration it is now, because I don't think everybody's worked on all the kinks. It feels like more of a newer thing than it probably is.
Yeah.
But I think everyone is going to benefit from learning that education is enjoyable. And again, that's something that we lose after those first few years at school, where we're having fun learning and we're painting, got paint all over our face, or we're running in the outside and playing games and exercising and stuff. We forget that this is fun, because it becomes look at a book and do this assignment, and so that idea of education and fun being inseparable is something that I think needs to be the mindset when we go into how we teach every time, and making space for that. I'm not sure there's been space created for that yet, as much as it could be.
How can people reach you? How can people learn more about what it is that you do?
Awesome. So I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. On Instagram, I'm at Make the Grade with Jade, and you'll be able to find me there. I post some like images of like things that I've got going on, like whether I've got sales going on, or sometimes I've posted tips there. And LinkedIn, I'm more often on LinkedIn, giving people shout outs, helping people that are open to work, and I'd love to meet you there. So thank you.